Module 5, Section 1, Objective 1. We're going to change mixed numbers to improper fractions. Now, we've done this before, but what we're doing now with rational numbers is we're going to put in some negatives. This page should look completely familiar because we've done it before. However, let's go over it really quickly. Okay, so a fraction is a division problem. Okay, so this means A divided by B. Okay, and what a fraction represents is, let's see, I had the fraction 2/3. So the number of equal parts indicated, number of parts in one whole. Okay, so what this means is if I were to have that circle divided into 3 parts, I only need 2 of them. Okay, that's all I'm talking about is 2 of them. So I want 2 out of 3. Okay, so that line right there basically means out of. Okay, the numerator is the top and the denominator is the bottom. Okay, the way I remember that, is D is down. Okay, so the denominator is down, the numerator is on the top. Okay, this page shows the 3 different types of fractions you're going to run into. The one you'll see most often is proper fractions. Okay, so that's where the top is smaller than the bottom. Okay, because we're doing rational numbers, the top can be negative, the bottom can be negative, or the entire fraction can be negative. And these all represent the same thing because they have one negative sign. Okay, so top, bottom, or front, it all means exactly the same thing. Okay, so their definition up here, numerator is less than the denominator, ignoring the signs. Okay, so -2 is less than 3, yes. +2 is not less than -3, but you don't care about the signs like it says right here. It's just 2 and 3. 2 is smaller. Okay, it represents part of a whole figure. It's always between 0 and 1 or 0 and -1. Basically, it can never be bigger than 1, ignoring the signs. Okay? All right, so an improper fraction now is exactly the opposite of that, where the top is bigger than the bottom. Okay, so if I had, for example, 5/4, that is improper. It is unbalanced. The top is too big. Okay, so if I had a negative here, it wouldn't matter. If I had a negative here, it wouldn't matter. It's still improper. If I had the negative out in the front, it's still improper. Okay, so the top numerator is bigger and the denominator is smaller. Okay, so it's top heavy basically. Okay, so top heavy ones are not proper, they're improper. And the last type is a mixed number. So it contains an integer, which is a whole, and then a proper fraction afterwards. Okay, so let's say I had 3 4/9. Okay, the whole number with the fraction makes it a mixed number because it's mixing whole numbers and fractions. Okay, how do I make this one negative? I put the negative out in the front. That is the only option. Okay, you cannot do 3 and then -4/9. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. If you were to put that into a calculator or a computer or use it in a program, it would crash. Okay, it doesn't exist. The only option is to put the negative out in front. Okay, now that's going to be really important with something we're going to do here. Okay, it's not this page, but the next one that it's going to be really important. Okay, so fractions are division problems, right? So when you have an improper fraction, you divide it and get a mixed number. Okay, so let's do it with a negative number, or a negative fraction. Okay, so if I had negative 10 thirds, okay, you're going to divide it and get a mixed number as your answer. Okay, so the answer is negative because it started as a negative. That negative just comes over. Okay, so now off to the side, we're going to do 10 divided by 3. 3 goes into 10 3 times with 1 left. So it becomes 3 1/3. Okay. So since the original was a negative fraction, the answer is a negative mixed number. Okay. Let me show you why you don't put a negative in your work. Okay. If I wanted to do negative 10 divided by 3, like this, okay, you would have a negative 10 divided by 3, and now 3 goes into negative 10 negative 3 times. So now negative 3 times positive 3 gives you negative 9. And now you're subtracting. So now you have to do a change, and you get a negative 1. Okay, this is just a mess, right? Okay, keeping track of all of the negatives is just crazy. So now we have negative 3 and then a negative 1/3, so they all end up being negative. So you write it this way, but that's just crazy busy nasty. Okay, so don't do it that way. Just leave the answer negative, work it out using positives, and then put it over here following your negative sign. Okay, we'll do some more of those here when we get to the examples. Okay, now this page is the same type of a thing. You've got to watch your negatives. Okay, the process, basically, it kind of left the problem off. If we're working backwards, if we have 3 2/5, and I want to change it to an improper fraction, this is what you need to do when you're multiplying or dividing, right? Okay, so this is where you multiply here, and then you add here, right? Okay, you ignore the negative, bring the negative over, then you do this stuff and put it after the negative. Okay, and I'll show you why it doesn't work here in just a minute. Okay, so we're going to do 3 times 5 is 15, and then add 2, so 3 times 5 is 15, add 2 is 17, right? So 17, and you leave the 5. Okay, it was negative, and it still is negative. So let's double check it. If I did 17 and divided it by 5, I would get 3 with 2 left. So it's 3 2/5, and that worked. Okay, now if you include the negative, it's not going to work. Okay, so this is the wrong way. So this is right. This is wrong. And I don't usually like showing you the wrong way, but if I don't show you, it won't make sense when you get the wrong answer. You won't know why. Okay, so let's use the exact same problem. So negative 3 2/5. Okay, now this time, if I multiply 5 by negative 3, I get negative 15, right? And then I'm going to do negative 15 add 2. So that would be negative 13. However, when I do the double check, I do not get what I started with. I get 2 3/5. Okay, so that's wrong. You cannot include that negative when you do the around the world type thing, like some people call it. Okay, so do not multiply by the negative in front of the whole number. Okay, sorry that's such messy writing, but you get the idea. Okay, so do not multiply by the negative when changing to improper, because you'll get an answer that doesn't check. To do it the correct way, you ignore the negative when computing, but add it afterwards. Okay, so I do this computation, and then I just bring the negative over. Okay, and we'll do some of those again when we have examples. And here are the examples. Okay, so I'm just going to leave their work, and let's take a look at it. All right, so on this 7 2/5, 7 times 5 is the 35, right? And then we add 2, and we get the 37. So it becomes 37 over 5. You always leave the original denominator. Okay. And this one, this is where you ignore the negative, and you do the problem. So 3 times 4, 3 times 4, how about 8? It's 24, that's where my mind was going. And then add the 1, so you get 25. So there's the 25 thirds, and notice the negative just came down. Okay, so let me explain using a visual. I think this is the easiest one. Sorry, I'm making you motion sick. If we have 8 1/3, I'm going to draw it out. Give me just a second. Okay, so what does this mean? This represents 8 1/3. Okay, so here's 8 individual circles, and then just 1/3 of one of them, right? So we have 8 here. This is 8, and then this is the 1/3, right? So what we're doing is trying to figure out how many thirds we have total. Okay, so here's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Okay, so we have 25 thirds, just like we're talking about. Okay, but instead of counting them up like I just did, okay, when we do this 3 times 8, that's this part, right? Because there are 8 of them, and they have 3 pieces in each one. So that's 24. And then we add this last one. So 24 add 1 is 25, and they are thirds. Okay, so that's what it means. I can't draw things that are negative, though, can I? That's why I kind of ignored the negative while I was doing it. Okay, let's do the 3 over here that were ours. Okay, the top one, we're going to go 7 times 2 is 14, add 6 is 20. So we get 20 sevenths, and you're done. That's it. This is 14, and then you add the 6, right? Okay, middle one. Now this is the one where you ignore the negative, but you're going to bring it over in our answer. Okay, so we're going to go 5 times 9 is 45, and then we're going to add the 2 from the top, so we get 47. Whoops, that was my negative, wasn't it? Okay, 47 ninths. Okay, if you want to put the negative on the top with the 47 instead of out in front, that's exactly the same thing. Okay, we talked about that at the beginning of this section. There are 3 different places you can put a negative, and the top is one of them. The front is another one. These are the same thing as long as they have one negative. Okay, You very seldomly will see the negative on the bottom, but that's also acceptable. Okay? Okay, this is the way I tend to write them the most often, is the negative on the top. But they are all the same. Okay, and the last one, again, we're going to ignore the negative. So we're going to go 4 times 6, or 6 times 4 is 24. And then you add the 5 from the top. So we get 29. And it's still sixths, but now it's negative. Okay, and you're done. So let's get all of that in there. There we go.